This is the fourth tutorial for Python. This time we'll be learning about flow control. So this includes Boolean values, comparison operators, and flow control statements. So first let's discuss a Boolean value. A Boolean is also another type of data. But while integers, strings, and floats can have an unlimited number of possible values, Booleans can only have two, and this is either true or false. So when you're initializing a variable, the true and false values don't use the inverted commas. This is what distinguishes them from strings. Now, another thing to remember is that the first letter has to be capitalized. And when I say first letter, I mean either true or false. So let's say I'm initializing a variable, right? Let's say the variable is called I have books, right? And I put an equal to sign and I say that's equal to true. See how that becomes like a yellowish orange sort of thing? That's what's supposed to happen when you put a Boolean value. That's what's supposed to happen when you put either true or false. And that happens if you capitalize the first letter. So I've initialized my variable over here. Now I can call the variable and I can say I have books, right? And that gives me true. Now, let's say I do the same thing, right? Let's say I do the same thing, except here I don't put the capital letter. See how that doesn't become that orangish yellow shade? That basically means that it's not accepted because true, as it says, true is not defined, right? Over here, Python, when I say true, it knows what I'm talking about because I've capitalized the first letter. So it's just important to always capitalize the first letter of a Boolean value. Alright, so Boolean values are used in expressions, and they can be stored in variables, just like any other type of value. So right now you might wonder why they exist, but you'll understand their purpose later on in the video when we talk about conditionals. Okay, so now let's move on to comparison operators. As the name suggests, comparison operators compare two values and evaluate it down to one single Boolean value. If you click on the link in the description, you'll see that there's a presentation. So in it, I've put an image of all the comparison operators along with what they do. So the first one that we have is equal to. So let me show you an example. So I say 3 is equal to 3. Alright, now you might have noticed that I've also used the equal to sign over here, but over here I've put two of them. Now, the sole reason behind this is that when I say 3 is equal to 3, what I'm doing is I'm comparing the two values. I'm comparing two values over here. Over here, though, I am defining a statement. So, the purpose of this equal to sign is different. It varies. Now, when I talk to a person, obviously, I can just explain it to you, right? This is what I mean. But when I talk to Python, it will not understand me, right? So if I just say 3 is equal to 3, it's not going to understand. It's going to take it as a defining value. So to put it in the most optimal, most efficient way, we have two different ways of writing it. So when we're defining or initializing a variable, we use a single equal to sign, while when we're comparing two values, we use equal to, right? Okay, now the second one that we have is not equal to, so I can say 3 is not equal to 4, right? And of course that would give us true. Now the next one that we have is less than, right? So I can say 3 is less than 2, and this would give us false. Similarly, I can do 3 is greater than 2, which would give us true. Okay, then we have less than or equal to, and the last one is greater than or equal to. So I can say 3 is less than or equal to 4, which would give us true, or I could say 3 is greater than or equal to 2, which would also give us true, right? So as you can see, each time I've clicked enter and given Python the instruction, the output is either true or false depending on whether the statement or input is right or wrong. Okay, so now let's talk about Boolean comparison operators. So there are actually three of these. So we have and, or, and not. So let me open an image. Right, so this sort of a thing, this is called a truth table. These are called truth tables, right? So it tells you every possible result of the Boolean operator. So the AND operator evaluates to true only if both Boolean values are true. Otherwise, it is false. So as you can clearly see over here. Now on the other hand, the OR operator evaluates an expression to true if either of the two values are true. So if both values are false, then it would evaluate to false. And then lastly, we have the not operator. So let me show you an example of that. So I can say not true, which would of course give us false, because I mean, let's say it out loud, right? If I say that something is not true, it means that something is false. And similarly, if I say something is not false, I would mean that it's true, right? So that's basically the not operator. So saying not true would give you false, and saying not false will give you true. If you say not true, then it would also give you true, because it essentially means not false, right? Let's say not true. It will give me true, because, so let's try this out. So if I say not true, that part evaluates to false, right? Then if this part is false and I say not false, that would give me true, essentially, right? So over here I can like say a lot of nots and it would still evaluate to a single value, right? So again, it might be sort of challenging to understand the significance at the moment, but as we go further, there will be hopefully some more clarity. Anyway, the last thing we're going to do with these operators is we're going to try to mix Boolean operators with comparison ones. So let's try a few examples. So let's say 3 is equal to 3, and 4 is equal to, let's say 4 is greater than 3, right? Which would evaluate to true. Because now what it's doing over here with the and, it's saying, is 3 is equal to 3 true? Yes, it is. Is 4 is greater than 3 also true? Yes, it is. So when I say and, if both values are true, then it evaluates to true, which is why we got true. Now let's say 3 is equal to 4, and 5 is lesser than 6. Right? And it will give me false, of course, because only one of these is true. While 5 is definitely smaller than 6, 3 is not equal to 4, which is why it gives me false. On the other hand, if I say the same thing, so let's say I say 3 is equal to 4, but I use or instead, and I say 5 is smaller than 6, it will give me true, because now only one of these values has to be true for it to value to true. Because, and over here we have 5 is smaller than, or 5 is lesser than 6 is definitely true, which is why it gives us true. Alright? So, I think we can move on now. So the Boolean expressions you've seen so far can all be considered conditions, right? So conditions always evaluate down to a single value, either true or false, so as we've been seeing right now. So what we are going to learn now are called flow control statements. Now the first one is called the if statement. So let me show you an example, right? Wait, let's open that up with Alright, so this is a project that I've created before, right? Now what I want to do is I just want to break it up to kind of explain it to you guys, right? So the first part is essentially what we've already learned. The program would say, what is your username? And then it would ask for the username. So it would be an input. So print and input functions, right? Now the next part says, if my name is not equal to Gen Z coders, print wrong name, haha. Right? So this part that I have highlighted, this is called the condition. As you can see, I have two values and I am comparing them with a comparison operator. And so this part would definitely only evaluate to either true or false. There's no third answer. So, which is why it would, since it evaluates down to a Boolean value, it is considered a condition, right? And obviously when I say, if I say to you as well, if this happens and do that, then this happens, that part of it is going to be considered a condition, right? Okay, so that's basically, now let me explain to you what this exactly means. Now Python is going to run through that if statement, right? And if in case, it's pretty much explicitly what it says. It's literally what it says. So if in case my name is not equal to Gen Z coders, only then and then will it print wrong name, haha. But if it is equal to Gen Z coders, which is why we've put this else statement, then it'll print nice name, enter password, and input. Okay, so let me explain this, right, in a little bit more detail. So let's say, imagine a situation where someone's asked you which snack you want from the vending machine. Now your first preference is a chocolate chip cookie, but you're not sure if it's available. Your second choice is a bag of chips, but you know for a fact that this is available. So you tell your friend that if the chocolate chip cookie is available, buy it. Else, buy me a bag of chips. Now this is precisely what the code means. If the name is equal to Gen Z coders, then do this. But if if the name is not equal to Gen Z coders, then do this. But if it is equal to Gen Z coders, then say nice name. Now, let me show you another way to do this. We can get the exact same output except in a different way. Let me show you how to do this. So over here, let me just copy and paste this part so it would just make it easier to do. Right. So here I can say, instead of saying my name is not equal to, I can say my name is equal to, right? And over here I can put that over here. And I can just remove this part and put that over here. Okay. Now, okay, just compare these two. This is essentially going to do the same thing. Over here, it's just saying that if my name is equal to Gen Z coders, then say whatever. If not, which means else, then print wrong name, haha, right? So it's pretty much the same thing, okay? Except it's just a different way of doing it. And now alright, so I'm just going to delete that for now, right? And I'm going to run this program, right? So let's run module, save that, and let's do it. Okay, so it asks me what is your username. I'm gonna say Gen Z coders, and it says nice name, enter password. So obviously we haven't set a password or anything yet. We can like improve on this later, but this is just the basic outline of how an if statement works, right? So as you can see, according to that, it says what is your name, Gen Z coders, and then it says nice name and enter password, like we've given the function over here. Now, let's try the same thing, except this time, let's say your username is something else. What is your username? Let's just say username. It says wrong name, haha, and the program terminates. So essentially, that's what happens. Now, we can also do this. We can add a lot of if clauses, by the way. So we can add a lot of if statements in one. So I can also say if my name is not equal to Gen Z coders, or I can even say over here in the same thing, I can say if my name is not equal to, let's say, Gen Z coders, right? So I've just capitalized another part of it, right? And I can just use a lot of these if statements in that same area. Like, it really doesn't matter. You can use as many if statements as you want, right? Now, the only reason that we use an else statement a lot of times when we have an if statement is because we don't want to have to list down every single other possibility, right? Like, there are millions, probably billions of possibilities, infinite actually, that a person can come up with, and I don't want to have to list that all down, which is why Python gives me the option of saying if and else, right? So if that is not true, then just do this, right? So yes, so I just deleted that because we don't need that. I hope you understood now. Anyways, so then the last thing, well, actually the next thing I want to do with you guys, I want to show you guys, is embedding if statements, right? So in one if statement, I can put a lot of other if statements. So here, under this clause, I can say if not here. I put that over here. So I can say if password, right? Because that's my variable. So if my password is, let's say, equal to, let's say password is yellow, right? If my password is equal to yellow, then say print access granted. Alright? Now, in the same thing, I can also say else, so if my password is not equal to yellow, print sorry, wrong password. Right? And I can say that. Yeah. So, now what this is going to do is let me explain to you how exactly this flow works. So first, the program is going to ask what is your username, then you enter your username, as we've already seen. Then if this is Gen Z coders, if it's not Gen Z coders, do the following. Now, if in case it is Gen Z coders, then the program will go on further to ask for a password. Now, if this password is equal to yellow, then it'll go further to say access granted. If not, it'll say, sorry, wrong password. Now, this is called embedding. Now, let's say this was over here, right? Let's say I had not embedded this. Now, the problem would be that, let's say if my name, alright, let's say this proves to be true. Let's say the name is not equal to Gen Z coders. Then it doesn't ask for a password over here. It only asks for a password so that my password variable is only created if your username is correct. If it's incorrect, it doesn't ask you for a password at all, which is why we cannot put this outside. We must embed this wherever we have created that my password variable, which is why we have to put this in the else statement over here, which is why we have to embed it, alright? And embedding is quite important a lot of times. Now, another thing I want to talk to you guys about is syntaxing. Over here, so syntaxing is different for a lot of computer programming languages. In Python, when we're using if statements, the syntax is always if and else, actually. We always use these colons, right? We always use these, and then it's kind of like, it's almost like saying that, I mean, it's pretty much like grammatically correct, right? It makes sense. So that's what I would use for syntaxing, and never forget to use the syntax, otherwise it just will not work, okay? And always remember, so once I click enter over here, it will still take me on the next line, which is indented, right? So there's an indentation over there, which means that since it's like indented over here, whatever I type in next is going to be embedded into that if statement, which means that it's going to be an output of that if statement. So always remember that if you want to close that statement, then just click backspace and start typing over there. That's how you also do the else statement, alright? So, let me run this module and show you the embedded one as well, right? So, what is your username? Let's say Gen Z Coders. Right, so now it asks me for a password, and I can say yellow, right? Access granted. On the other hand, if I hadn't said yellow, if I'd say something else, it wouldn't have said access granted, it would have said sorry, wrong password. And you can try that out as well with your own program. And similarly, also, if the username itself was incorrect, it just wouldn't have asked me for a password, alright? Okay, now I want to talk about one last statement, and then we are done. Now, this is called the elif statement, alright? Let me type that out over here. Okay, this is called the elif statement. I'm going to put that in a comment. Okay, so when it comes to if and else, only one of the clauses will execute. But you may have a case where you want one of many possible clauses to execute. Now, the elif, also known as else if, so we don't ever say else, like we don't actually use else if while writing our code. We always say elif, so it would be like this. It would be like elif, and then whatever the clause, and then the syntaxing, right? So the elif, also known as else if statement, is one that always follows an if or another elif statement. So it provides another condition that is checked only if one of the previous conditions were false. Now I don't really want to go into this, but basically that's what it is, right? It's when you want one of many possible clauses to execute, because you cannot do that with if or else statements. Okay? So that's about it for this video. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you learned plenty, and see you in the next video. Happy coding!